it's really interesting, isn't it? But the truth, that's the thing, and that's what people who understand comedy and have it in their bones know, that it doesn't exist without truth. You have to have massive amounts of jeopardy or something isn't funny. Buster Keaton stands still and a house lands beside him. You know, it's sort of, without that, it's life and death stuff, isn't it? Great comedy. And I think that's kind of what we sniffed out. And also you have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to any woman sitting watching the TV who goes, oh my God, I am being separated from the people who love me, or I don't know who I am anymore. I'm a translucent version of myself because I don't know what I want. I just know that I shapeshift and I people please and I'm desperately lost. And so I have to do it right, or that's a massive insult, isn't it? You know, as a storyteller.
Hey, my name is David Fear. I'm a senior editor at Rolling Stone. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. You could have been out in the broiler that is New York City right now, but you came in this nice air-conditioned theater, and you saw this pilot. I have to say, my only regret is that they weren't able to show you more episodes, because I've seen the first 4 of these, and shit gets wild. So let's bring some people out to talk about them. She is an actor, she's a writer, she's a producer. I'm pretty sure she was a caterer on this. She might have been a gaffer. Sharon Horgan. She plays Grace Anne Marie Duff. I'm going to make sure I get this right. Eva Birthistle? Correct. I almost got it right. This won't be the worst thing I say tonight, probably. Sarah Greene. And the prick. Class bang. Congratulations on this.
Thank you.
Walk me through the genesis of this. This is very loosely based on a Belgian show named Clan, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how did this come across your radar? How did you develop this into a show that like seamlessly fit into an Irish context? How did we basically get to what we just watched?
Well, I had finished Catastrophe and I was trying to figure out what to do next. And I had no real idea, and it takes a while to find something that you want to write about, because it takes a lot of work, and so you have to really love it. So I was trying to figure that out. And then Jay Hunt, who was my commissioner at Channel 4 in the UK when Catastrophe was on there, she moved over to Apple, so she asked me to lunch and said, what do you want to do next? And I said, I don't know. And then she said, well, watch this thing, because I think it might appeal to you, and I'm going to try and get the rights to it, and I think we should remake it together. And so I watched one episode, and I was hooked. I loved it, but I'd never adapted anything before, and I hadn't written anything hour length, and I'd never made a thriller, so I was nervous. But yeah, I watched the rest of it, and I realized that it was, I love the premise. I think it's inherently really funny and dark and awful, and I love the murder mystery. But I just love the sisters. I mean, the Belgian sisters in the original are, not as good as these sisters, but it was just a very, enticing thing to get my teeth into.
It is a thriller, but as you start to watch, as these episodes go along, yes, it's a family drama. It's a very dark comedy. It's a lot of different things. I'd told somebody that I'd seen the first 4 episodes, and they said, "Oh, so what's it like?" And I was like, "Well, it's the Coen brothers, but sisters, essentially."
That's so great. Thank you.
But that's kind of exactly what you're going for, and that's a hard tone to nail. You would think it would be easy, but it actually isn't. Anybody who's seen a bad dark comedy knows that it's not. You need to really have that kind of balance.
You do, and you have to have a beady eye the whole time, because especially something like this that has a very serious subject matter, even though it's surrounded by sort of heightened romp a lot of the time. There's, you know, a dangerously abusive relationship at the heart of it. And you never want to seem like you're making light of that or belittling it in any way. And yet at the same time, you need to give people laughs. But, you know, I think comedy can be really powerful in that way. It's very it's a very clever tool for hiding difficult subject matter in, and then, you know, when it does come along and knock you around the back of the head, it feels all the more brutal for it, you know.
Yeah. How did everybody here get involved with this? And I'm curious what your first impression was when you read the pilot script.
Okay. Hello. Yes.
Testing.
Yes. Can you hear me? So I think we all had a very similar experience in as much as we were just sent these extraordinary scripts. It was just that simple. I think we all know, don't we, that everything comes down to the writing ultimately. If you don't have that as your spinal column, you're desperately lost. And so it was that sort of feeling of reading something that was so different to anything that I'd read before, that was about these 5 amazing women, but it was irreverent and sexy and sad and slalomed between huge moments of heartbreaking isolation for people into belly laughs, you know, and I think it was a complete no-brainer in that way, you know. It was something you really felt you could get your teeth into. Eva Birthistle.
What she said. You said it so well. Also, Sharon Horgan is a very difficult woman to say no to. And yeah, the script is where it starts, and it was a wonderful script. And she writes dialogue so brilliantly, funnily, achingly funny, and painfully painful as well. So it was a no-brainer. And I think, yeah, that you mentioned like the tone of it, and that being such a tricky thing to get right. And but she got it so right to want to sort of delve into that world and explore all those themes, and something that is ultimately a dark comedy, drama thriller, was a really, really exciting prospect. Yeah.
She told me I'd be wearing an eye patch.
That was all it took?
That was it?
And the bow and arrow.
The bow and arrow, yeah, but maybe the eye patch.
There's a bow and arrow. Yeah.
Claes.
Oh, well, I just when I read this the first time, I thought, wow, this is crazy, because it's like nothing I ever read or saw before. So I was immediately that immediately appealed to me. So and then I really like being a cunt. So so yeah, that was like very easy. And no, I don't know. Oh my God. I mean, yeah, there is a perverse joy in, like, you know, being a really nasty kind of person. And, you know, I get to say stuff in this series that I've only ever dreamed of saying to people in my life. So yeah, that did it for me. Thank you, Sharon, for all those lovely lines.
Let's talk a little bit about the dynamics of the sisters here, because you guys have probably seen movies and series where you feel like you're watching a bunch of actors playing a family, and then you get the stuff where you actually feel like you're watching a family, and then you happen to remember that they're actors. Like that real sense of like a shared history and a bond. So how long did it take you guys to get that? Was this something that just happened through rehearsals? Was this something you guys did off set? And the difference between sketching out these characters as individuals versus a collective?
Well, it happened quite weirdly fast, I thought. Because, I mean, these women, they sort of came together as sisters very, very fast. And it was like an incredible bond and connection that they developed quite easily. And that was just so helpful for me. Because obviously, my character's like, you are a threat to my life. So the whole bond and connection that you developed was really something that was very easy to play off. and it was just magic, sort of seeing it happen, because it really came about very, very fast. I thought you sort of and he was, very, very cool and very helpful for me. That it's.
I think we were lucky we had a nice chunk of rehearsals before filming, and we all know, don't we, that really when you're rehearsing something for camera, what you're hoping to achieve is a fast track to intimacy, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get rid of the space between people so that you believe that they're always rubbing up against each other. And the director of the first block, Dervla Walsh, she was really canny. She got a little WhatsApp group set up very early. She got us to swim together. It was, and it really, it was mad. It kind of just, it lit. It caught, the flame was lit very quickly. So, But it's
another little thing we had to do that I found really helpful was we had to, when any set is created, the designer wants you to, make it the character's own by providing pictures. And so you provide pictures of yourself as a child or, but we had to provide pictures of ourselves as the Garvey girls. So the first few days we just spent, just multiple selfies and then, getting a WhatsApp group together and just sharing those pictures. And I felt that really helped initially, didn't it? Yeah. To make us feel like a gang.
Yeah. But the rapport just seemed to naturally be there, and that's not always the case, is it? And it just, out of luck, or you are very clever and canny at casting, whether you just had some sense that those dynamics would work. But it was, as Claes said, it was pretty instantaneous, wasn't it?
It was.
I think, we had a really great casting director, Nina Gold, but I did sort of know who I wanted to be my sisters, and I also felt like it needed to be people that I knew I'd get on with, because it's a long time filming. It's 10 months, and it just has to be a group of people that you really think that you'd be comfortable with and enjoy playing off, I think, for that length of time.
So let's talk about JP for a second.
Yes.
Yes.
You guys only get a very brief glimpse of what a horrible, horrible person this person is. You really get to see him go to town in like the next few episodes, and I'm told the last half is just prickitude, the utmost degree. Prickitude, yeah.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Last few eps, yeah.
So I'm curious, when you're going into some of these scenes, some of which we see here and a couple of which we see in the next few episodes, are you trying to figure out what level of like prickness, I guess, for lack of a better word, that you have? Like you go into a scene and go, okay, this one is a 6. Like I'm only going to be kind of toxic, but this next one's an 8.
Well, yeah, no, not so much. I have to say, I do think the writing on this is brilliant, and it is sort of just putting in the plug and just doing it. Just fucking say the lines and do the actions, and I know that sounds almost arrogant, but it's very clever how it's written, and I, the thing that I think Anne-Marie and I sort of were talking most about was like, balancing the whole thing so that it would also become something that was real. So it wasn't just a caricature or a parody, but that it had like real emotional depth to it, and that it sort of was embodied and founded somewhere in there. And so I am just sort of playing myself, in the sense that...
Explain.
Yeah, well, it is. I suppose it is just a question of acknowledging that I suppose I don't know. I can't speak for all of you, but I do have these sides to my person, and it's a question of overemphasizing them or exposing them or shining a light on them and letting that shine through more than anything else. And it's very easily done with dialogue that is written so cleverly and wittily like this. So it's so the whole prickness and levels of prickness wasn't something I thought so much about. I more sort of on the day, especially with Anne-Marie, we thought about, getting to the truth of that scene on that, and then have the director and the editors, and doing the leveling of the prickness, because we need to stretch it a little bit.
Yeah. Can we talk really quick about those scenes between that married couple, because they can get extremely brutal and very uncomfortable as the series goes along. Mm-hmm. And it's this thing where you're kind of laughing at how absurdly toxic this guy is, and then he will say and do something specifically to Grace in which you're like, oh, this is horrible. I mean, this is really rancid. Mm-hmm. See how you react, and just the way you guys play those scenes, it does feel very grounded. It feels of a piece, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's something that you want to laugh at with some of these other characters and situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I suppose the hearth of the story is a coercive relationship. And without that, there would be no quest for rescue. So, it was tough going, some days. And I've talked about this, Claes and I have been talking about this for a couple of days now. And your body doesn't know when you're telling a lie. So I would feel quite overwhelmed, By the end of the shoot, I felt very blue. And it was just that feeling of isolation. And because you have to go there, and we did go there. We made a conscious decision that we wanted people to invest in the marriage, to really desperately want to rescue Grace and kill him, because the audience have to want the sisters to kill him. So that's what he has to arouse in the audience. So yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? But the truth, that's the thing, and that's what people who understand comedy and have it in their bones know, that it doesn't exist without truth. You have to have massive amounts of jeopardy, or something isn't funny. Buster Keaton stands still and a house lands beside him. It's sort of, without that, it's life and death stuff. Mm-hmm. Isn't it great comedy? And I think that's kind of what we sniffed out. And also you have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to any woman sitting watching the TV who goes, oh my God, I am being separated from the people who love me, or I don't know who I am anymore. I'm a translucent version of myself because I don't know what I want. I just know that I shapeshift and I people please, and I'm desperately lost. And so I have to do it right, or that's a massive insult, isn't it? As a storyteller.
Claes, you'd mentioned how seeing them bond so easily as sisters affected what you were doing and how you were going into the performance. I want to throw this question back to you guys. How was reacting to what he's doing and how he's playing this character and the sort of toxicity that he's bringing to this guy affect how you guys are reacting against him in any scene, how that's affecting your performance?
He made it very easy. It was, though. I mean, he was so vile. And in rehearsals, before every scene, we would kind of get to shout at him and be like, oh, I hate him. I hate him so much. But that's why it works. He's such a brilliant villain you've only seen one episode, but I think from everyone we spoke to today and last week, not even by the end, from the beginning, people are totally with the sisters and backing them in this very immoral stance that they're taking and decision that they've made to cross a massive line that you can't really come back from. So yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
Eva and Sarah, I know that we only get a small taste of what's in store for both of your characters in this first episode. Some really vile shit happens, some really wonderful shit happens, some really wild shit happens. What can you tell us about what's in store for these characters without giving anything major away?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to, without try not to give any plot away that we're not supposed to give away. Ursula is sort of keeping up the facade. I think in Ep 1 it's happy families, and she's got her husband and her job, and she's sort of just keeping motoring, but it sort of unravels for her, and as the story reveals more of itself. Everything is not so peachy in her life, and she's sort of made some choices that sort of land her in a little bit of trouble that JP gets wind of, and he uses it against her, which furthers the sisters' quest to do him in, so to speak. So yeah, it's I think Ursula sort of becomes more sort of
She's really not allowed to talk about it.
I know, I find it so difficult.
She becomes sort of more morally dubious as the series goes on, doesn't
she's
she?
very reluctant to get involved initially because
Yeah.
she's always sort of worried about how it impacts her life and her family, and she's quite self-centered in that way. But sort of,
I mean, you would be if someone asked you to come in and commit a murder with them. You'd be a bit like,
you would. To be
how's
fair,
this going to
you
affect
would.
me?
Yeah. Exactly. But I suppose I don't necessarily put Grace at the forefront of that initially. I put my own life, and then I think things become a little bit trickier, and I jump on board, and then sort of there's a whole shift then in the dynamic.
Well, BB has made the decision that he's going to die, and nothing really changes her mind or will change her mind. And her job now is to get everybody on board, which I can't even say. Yeah, but I think, she goes on quite a journey, Marley. Yeah.
You do find out that she's sort of the resident expert at planning a murder. I think there's a
Loves a
great
plan,
line
loves
like
a plan.
episode where you go, why can't we just kill him with poison like normal women? And BB is the character that starts coming up with all these very elaborate
A
ideas.
bit of research.
She has a natural ability to plot a murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were breaking episodes with the writer in the writer's room, were you guys like constantly trying to think of different ways to kill JP?
Well, we were blessed with this amazing Belgian series that it's adapted from, and it's quite different in tone, and obviously completely rewritten, but we kept some of the murder attempts that Malin, who was the original creator, dreamt up, because as it turns out, there's not that many ways you can kill someone and get away with it. So there was a limited pool of murder possibilities, and we sort of realized that. And then we also thought, why would you throw out the baby with the bathwater? It works, and it was just finding a way for it to suit our tone, because the original series was a lot more slapstick, a lot crazier and sillier, and there's a murder attempt every week, and a lot of dead bodies. So my whole thing was, let's try and find a way to ground the story, to believe it, and for me, what was more interesting was the collateral damage that happens to the family. Like, they go into this thing trying to save Grace, and in actual fact, you can't sort of cross that line without it damaging you, and so cracks start appearing within the family. So I was more interested in how it affected the sisters. There's still a lot of silliness and fun, but I kind of felt like it. I felt like you always had to believe it. You always had to believe that they would do it, and that they could get away with it, and the reason why they were doing it. So you had to believe in, like Anne-Marie was saying, you had to really believe in these sisters and their family bond, and how much they love their sister and how they would do anything for her.
And you start to realize as the show goes on that everybody has their reasons. Everybody has their reasons for wanting him dead, but the real reason is that he's driving one of their sisters, mad. Mm-hmm. And that's reason enough. That's enough of a motive to actually try and, save her.
Yeah, absolutely. But they become a little bit preoccupied with their own reasons for hating him as well, and it's kind of it's hard to talk about without giving it all away.
I'm trying to be very careful.
Yeah, because some of the sisters leave what they learn about themselves and their anger towards him, when that gets left behind, that's when they're at their strongest, and sort of the ones that get more caught up in it and who are trying to get rid of him for different reasons, like it suits their lives a bit more. They're the ones that sort of get the most damaged and fractured.
I have to ask, is that who I think it is singing the theme song?
It is, yeah. PJ Harvey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This may surprise you that a 50-something male that works at Rolling Stone that has a wizard's beard is a huge PJ Harvey fan. But I mean, like, I was...
What a shocker.
Yeah, who would have
What a
thought? And that
shocker.
you hear it, much less that she's covering that Leonard Cohen
Oh,
song.
I know.
How did you make that happen? How did you get her involved?
Well, I think it's the best idea I ever had. I'd loved that Leonard Cohen song for years, and when we started talking about making this show, you always I always start off with music, what you start listening, not just music, but what you listen to and what you read, and like just what you take in, and that song it couldn't be any more fitting. It's a list of various ways to die, and I knew I wanted to have a woman sing it, and so at the time we were looking for a composer for the series, and I thought about Polly, and she had composed for Shane Meadows' series, but I just worked with this chap called Tim Phillips who composed Shining Vale's score, and he's absolutely brilliant, and we thought we might have more of a chance of bagging Polly if we paired her up with someone. So it wasn't, because it's an enormous amount of work to do 10 hours to provide score for that amount. So, I just enticed her with the Leonard Cohen cover, singing that, and then we did a Zoom and we talked about the musical influences that I was thinking about for the show, like Appalachian sort of folk music and murder ballads, and even sort of Bulgarian choirs, and she'd been in a Bulgarian choir, and she writes a lot of murder ballads herself, and a lot of her stuff is a kind of folky style. She writes about death, women, water. It sort of just made sense to us, and a new cover that she's just done came in today that I'm really excited about for the second last episode. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Before we go, I mean, it really is a show about family. I mean, that's just the one thing that's kept coming up again and again in these answers. What do you think what do you think the show says about family and like the sort of ties that bind, the blood ties that bind?
Well, it's about more than one family, though, right? Because you have these brothers.
Yeah, the insurance sons.
Yeah. So I think it's about love in all its many colors, and about the ferocity and animal nature of love, and how we can distort it and tie it in knots, and it's like the sea. It's so freaking tidal and epic, and we're bound by it, because that's the thing about family. We don't choose those people, and we can be so tough on each other when we're blood tied, because we know they won't walk out the door. Mm-hmm. So it becomes like interwoven, so profoundly interwoven. And I think it will make people think about all of those weird blurred boundaries, but lots of good stuff too, clearly.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you very much for this. It's really wonderful.
Thank you.